Welcome to Ziffity Quick Chat.
What you don't want to do is you don't want to have a complex headless build, but you don't have any developers on staff. I need to manage a brand, but I need to represent that brand differently in different countries and in different languages. And so headless actually makes a certain amount of sense. BigCommerce has more headless builds on it than any other e-commerce platform. I highly recommend people take a look at the MACH Alliance.
What other types of e-commerce businesses do you think should go for the headless commerce approach?
I think it has less to do with your vertical and more to do with whether or not the two reasons I gave earlier resonate with you as a business. I mean, you can certainly make I can make some sort of generalizations from time working with different merchants. You know, if you're selling spark plugs and automotive, aftermarket parts, you're probably less inclined to consistently refresh your site. The products are the thing that you're selling primarily. The products get refreshed. The products have photography and assets. But people aren't coming to buy spark plugs from me because my homepage is cool, right? Because my brand is cool. So they're coming to buy from me because they trust me and because I have the thing they need that's in stock because their car is busted, right? So like, with more sort of brand first approaches, often the brand first implies a level of creative control and constant change around the portrayal of that brand. That's why I sort of talked about health and beauty a little bit, and fashion is like, you tend to see more of that in those industries, but it's by no means limited to those industries.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think it's advisable for enterprise grade organizations as well?
I think it's almost more advisable for enterprise grade organizations. And the reason you talk about for headless, you mean for headless adoption?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really better suited for, I would say, upper mid-market and enterprise brands because of the technical complexity that headless implies. There's a value in the simplicity of paying one license to one provider that gives me a platform that has my front and my back end, and I make a change on the back end and it immediately shows up on the front end, and I don't have to push anything or have middleware like translate. So you're handcuffed a little bit in the amount of change that you can do, but it's also much easier for you to operate. So if you're a smaller business and you don't have a lot of overhead and a lot of technical staff to manage that like consistent orchestration of pushing data from one system to another, it may be that headless will actually be frustrating for you. And so usually where I've seen merchants have success is that where they are, it doesn't necessarily mean that they do a lot. It's not about a revenue number. It's more about, do they have the technological know-how and the team inside of their org to facilitate the pace of change that they want to get out of their headless system? Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to have a complex headless build, but you don't have any developers on staff and no way of sort of like leveraging it. So you don't want to buy something that is more horsepower than you need. If all I can do is drive around the golf course, I don't need necessarily an F350, right? Like, that's what I might use.
Yeah. I mean, it makes perfect sense. And we've talked about, challenges like high ownership costs, complexities in managing multiple systems. There's hurdles in replatforming, that's inevitable. Do you have any tips or advice for brands to address these challenges?
So for how to make it a little bit more accessible, to do
exactly.
kind of a, it's interesting. The landscape has changed. We're seeing new types of tools show up to help orchestrate sort of composable environments. So I'll give you a sort of a for instance. So Gartner, the analyst firm, released their they have a regular report called their hype cycle, and so it's sort of a curve of, you've got various. It's a bit sort of a curve where you've got the plateau of productivity over on the far right, where innovation has pretty much slowed down, but you've got a very sort of a commoditized or regular and predictable product offering. You've got the trough of disillusionment, the peak of inflated expectations, right? It's very colorful. But one of the things that's good for is it's a good publication. It's a good graphic for showing you new innovative technologies that are coming into the composable space. They've got a hype cycle for digital commerce that specifically does this. And so for instance, but imagine a tool that lets a developer set up a digital experiences and they can sort of like build it and then hand it to a business user to maintain and go, so that I don't have to have a developer involved in, let's say, launching a new product line or making a change to a product attribute value on a PDP. I have a way of, I have a tool basically that lets me connect an API from one system, let's say my PIM to content stack, or a place where I have digital assets, and then connecting that to my front end, whatever my front end might be, so that I can orchestrate the pulling of data from disparate systems, unifying it and pushing it out to a particular front end, whatever I might have. So it's very new. So there's vendors like Uniform and Octu who are out there handling it. So I would recommend, if you're looking into this, maybe take a look at the wider sort of like the people selling tools for Headless specifically. You might see value in there. And there's a lot of times the Headless decision is driven by a dev team. So they should be making recommendations to you about the tooling that is important to them. But that would be an example of something where there are things available now that fill what would be manual labor and now are able to automate that even inside of a composable build. So you slowly start piecing together parts of a composable solution through third-party vendors or through your own team members or through an agency, right? So I would say go talk to all of those people, understand what the operational impact is going to be of Headless before you make that decision. Walk through some scenarios that are common to your business operationally, of like, creating a new category, creating a new product, filling orders, doing a promotion or a marketing campaign, doing a landing page for a paid search campaign, things that are pretty common in e-commerce. Those sorts of things will probably look different in a Headless environment than they are today for, if you're thinking of transitioning in. So work through the space and all the parties involved, try to put together a coherent picture first before you sign contracts with vendors. Make sure that you get an idea of what the sort of the cost and impact is going to be of going that way.
Yeah, great tips. It's really important for people, to do their due diligence before implementing something like that. So in your opinion, what are the best platforms in the market that are facilitating kind of the SaaS plus Headless approach?
Well, I have to say BigCommerce, right? I mean, sort of they're paying me, but I do believe that. I've actually been a BigCommerce fan for many years, and like I said, I was a partner before. When I first got involved with BigCommerce, Headless wasn't really a big thing yet. But over the past few years, composability and Headless has really taken off, especially in Europe. I've seen tremendous growth in Europe on the Headless space. And I think that comes from the complexities of selling in a multi-language, multi-currency environment where I need to manage a brand, but I need to represent that brand differently in different countries and in different languages. And so Headless actually makes a certain amount of sense because I have one place where I keep a lot of my core data, but then I'm able to set up the right glass, the right surface area to sell and market. And I can make those very bespoke and tailored. I'm not stuck sort of like with one template that I have to deploy to Portugal and Italy and the Nordics, right? And so it's a very different environment. And I think that like Headless just lends itself to more complex environments like that. So obviously I would say BigCommerce has more Headless builds on it than any other e-commerce platform.
Oh, really?
We do. Yes, we do. And I think it's because we've been doing it for a long time and we're also very accessible. It's very easy to get up and running. And you can also hybridize your Headless builds. You can use BigCommerce's native stencil, template for pieces of your site and use custom, software that you've built for other pieces of the site. So we're not forcing you to be Headless or the entire way. You can mix and match depending on what your business needs. It's a great way to sort of test out and see, maybe I want a third party handling my homepage, and header and footer, but I'm content to let BigCommerce just render a product listing page and a PDP and a cart and a checkout, right? That's not uncommon at all. So obviously I would say us. I highly recommend people take a look at the MACH Alliance. That's MACH. That is a consortium of software vendors who all follow the same sort of headless philosophy and how they're built, right? So there are several e-commerce platforms in the MACH Alliance. There are several CMS and DXPs, search and merch tools. The digital experience orchestrators like Uniform that I was talking about earlier, they're also in the MACH Alliance. The MACH Alliance does quite a bit of thought leadership and curation of solutions to make sure that if you are talking to somebody in the Alliance, you can be sure that they actually are composably built and they're not a monolithic system pretending to be composable, which is starting to happen more and more. And I think the MACH Alliance is a great place to go because they've got all of the pieces of an e-commerce experience in their membership. So anybody in there is going to be a pretty good bet. Obviously, BigCommerce is a member of the MACH Alliance.
Right. Gotcha. Well, thank you so much, Aaron. That was a lot of insight, and I definitely believe your perspective on all these questions has answered a lot of our audience's questions that they might have had, in making decisions. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And stay tuned for the next one.
All right. Thanks, Mackenzie.
Thank you.